We're back to building bridges, and part 3 of my part in this training video is to look at how we include, how we bridge people over to God. And that's the big question, because we need to understand how it is that, first of all, why is it that the church shunned, put people out who have issues such as addiction, divorce, as well as other life choices that are self-destructive, or, of course, the church looks down on, which may be actually not so much an issue, or whatever the case may be. People are out of the church for a reason. Why not bring them back? Go to them and bring them in. As we said in the previous sessions, side door, because the main door is scary, fear. The side door is welcoming, invitational. So we need, as a body of believers all over the world, in every culture, well, backing up, if you look at every culture, and I have been in India, I have been in Africa, I have been in other places here in America, and it's nothing new. Canada as well. Haven't gotten to Central America yet, haven't gotten to South America yet. Looking forward to those days where I'll be able to go south of the border. But more, as far as America is concerned, but more importantly, what I've observed is that you have every culture where the church is there, where people are still on the outside. And the problem is, yes, we have those who are seekers, they're not believers. No, I don't want the church, but often it's because of a reason. A reason because they've been rejected or shunned. Let's turn the tables. How can the church, and see, on the other side, why isn't the church more effective in reaching those who are on the outside? What's really going on? And we've been talking about how, as we've learned in Kenyan culture, and of course in other countries in Africa, there's this problem of shunning, keeping people out. And as I just mentioned, we find that in other cultures in different ways. Picking it back up as far as method, approach, and also building that bridge so that those who are on the outside can come into the inside, come through the side door enough so that they can come through the main door more. On this slide that I'm going to jump off on right now, we're going to look at acceptance. Acceptance. It sounds perfunctory. It sounds elementary, but it is so profound. Acceptance is the first big need people need to know. You and I need that. And we're church leaders. We need to know we are accepted by the people we serve. We need to know we're accepted by other people in the community. Because if we're not, then we're asking the question, well, God, where do you want me? And even if we're not accepted, of course, God, you want me here? God shows us. God makes the way. We keep going. But then we have to come to a point saying, well, Lord, where do we shake the dust off and go to a new place, or adapt and continue to work in where you've put me? Well, acceptance is the first big need. Accept people where they are. If they're drunk, get them to a sobriety plan. If they are feeling rejected, walk with them to walk through, talk it through conversationally, coach them through why it is that they don't feel accepted, how this came to be. Acceptance, accountability. Okay, so a person comes into the church and they feel acceptance by you and by others, and they continue to build networks in the church body, and people feel that they can now be restored by God's hand and also through God's people. Accountability says, well, all right, you've been dealing with your addiction, you've been dealing with this life issue, what have you done to work on it? How's it going? Now, in the context of discipleship, under that term, we call that accountability as well, as far as how we help this person and that person to then, how are you doing in your walk with Jesus? We ask the question, how's the Bible reading going? How are you growing in your relationship with Christ? Now, looking at the social problem aspect of it, up front, as we welcome that person in who's been shunned, as we accept them, we also want to hold them accountable. How's it going with your recovery process in overcoming the addiction and re-entering into healthy living, wellness, also healthy relationship building? We walk with them, we journey with, bridge them over to God and to God's people. Accountability is a part of that process. And also action. We are always proactive, not reactive. Proactive says, I'm proacting, I am initiating, I'm wanting to build that relationship with that person who's new, coming through the side door, and welcome him and introduce him or her to the people who we know in the body of believers will immediately accept them as an early adopter, if you will, to adopt them in, and then welcome them to others who will then continue to build that acceptance process. And then that action we take on as church leaders, we model, just like Jesus, who was the rabbi, we model for them acceptance and love that is unconditional but also intentional, and also working on accountability, and also about saying, yes, I know you'll screw up another 8 times, but maybe by the 9th time, as you're dealing with your addiction, for example, he or she, you, John or Jill, you'll finally come to that understanding that we accept you, but we're also going to hold you accountable for your own actions. But not that we're going to put you out of the church, but we're going to keep you here, front and center with us, and we're going to walk with you to figure this out, if you are willing. See, it's also, then as we look at the person who we bring in, and as we go to the people on the street, some people who come in and maybe they don't want this. Maybe they're not ready to be a part of the church. The side door is great, but boy, we're in different places, aren't we? We have to be ready for that too. And we accept them anyway. And you'll have some who will be ready to come to the side door and then build that process and be able to come to the main door again, and others who will not be ready to step in that side door yet, even though you invite them, because of fear, because of, no, they choose to be in their addiction or choose to be in their life state because they've been hurt so bad before. So you have to be ready for anything, is the point. But as we accept them in, as we hold them accountable, action, we affirm them. Good, we see progress. Good, let's play to your strengths. Good, let's not try to fix weaknesses. God does that. But we accept you and we want to walk with you and pray for you and continue to invite you to work on you with a recovery coach, with other counselors, with other people in the church who are trained, who are approved to be able to work maybe with your situation, whatever that is. Okay, so acceptance, accountability, action, affirmation, as we consider going to where the people are and bringing them in to the church. So as you're dealing with those who are sex trafficked and they're out on the streets and you're rescuing them, we are being proactive and inviting and saying, yes, we want to bring them in. That's our intent. That's our desire. That's what Jesus calls us to do. So let's work on that and building that bridge with the side door. And then, of course, access. Make sure that we can, whatever tribe or class, our worldview has to ask the question, are we all welcome? Are all welcome in our church? Are we all welcome in who we are as a body of believers at this location and at that location as we're working together? Say, for example, you may go on the streets, rescue a bunch of boys and girls, or men and women, families, and you get them in the side door, and they're in the church, and they're building relationships, but it's not working out as well. Maybe there's another church that fits them better. So one church needs to work with another church. And as churches work together, they can become synergistic, they can become collaborative in getting the people who you're bringing in the side door to the other side doors, the other churches, and then eventually through those main doors. So acceptance, accountability, action, affirmation. We affirm, affirm, affirm. We're never there to use criticism as a weapon. Constructive criticism, that's a part of accountability. But affirmation is the context we do it in. So this is, as we train our minds, as we train here with this video series, as you're hearing about relapse prevention and as all this fits together, you'll begin to see that the church body becomes a hospital for those who are coming in. You have your doctors, you have your nurses, you have your chaplains, of course, being church leaders to begin with, but also you have your other workers with gifts and talents and abilities to help assimilate, bring those who are on the outside in the best way possible. So next, we look at strategy and direction and results. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to really do it. Here in America, we have the same problem. We talk a good game, but when we get to the place of saying, as a church, as a body of believers, we're going to buy the bus and go pick people up. Or we're going to get this team together and go out as a group and start welcoming, inviting, and bring them through that side door. Talking about is one thing. Doing it is another thing. And so we need to, what do people need? As we, of course, prepare the heart. We have a place in God's hand and we project confidence. So as we get people in, again, there's that heart preparation. Like I said, some people are not ready to come in, but we pray for God to prepare the heart and also for God's hand to be involved with what you're doing. It's God's program. God does it through you. And of course, project confidence. So as we assimilate, as we bring people in, we want to affirm them and also project confidence that we believe in them. Why? Because God believed in them first. Why is it that if we believe that every person is made in God's image, and of course we're broken people, every one of us, Romans 3:23, all fallen short of the glory of God, why is it not the truth, the true, genuine heart of the church to be the true hospital restorative center for our brothers and sisters who are lost? We have to always keep that question in mind and always answer that question as it comes up in our minds, keeping it in front of us. Never forget why you're here. And project confidence that yes, John, yes, Jill, yes, Josephine, yes, whoever you are coming through our doors, we believe in you because God does. God loves you and so do we. We always say here at Community Recovery. It begins with God loving. God chose to save you and me to begin with. And who am I? Yeah, I'm Dr. Mark. So what? I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, saved by grace. And they are too. And every person is gifted by God. As they become believers, those spiritual gifts come alive. So let's project some confidence. Next, as far as strategy and direction and results, the vision's clear. Bridge them into your place, into your relationships. Give where you also discover direction. Because with direction, then we see where God is taking us. Goals and methods and strategies to get to those goals, step by step. What are those? I'm always asking the question, what can we do different? How can we adapt? Well, you say, Dr. Mark, oh, we already know. Oh, we're way ahead of you. Are you? My challenge to you is this. If you're not always asking the question every day, you're not coming to a better understanding of why you're here. It's very important. As a fearless leader in Christ, you are willing to ask the tough questions daily because things change. the felt need may shift ever so slightly or ever so greatly. And we need to always understand, what is our vision? Why do we exist? What is the felt need of your people? What's the felt need of your community? The problems, Jesus said, the poor will always be with you. Poor in spirit, poor in heart, poor in other ways. That's all of us. But again, where are we headed? Why do we exist? What's the felt need of the community? There in Liberia, there in Nigeria, there in other parts of Africa or Asia, wherever you are watching today. Where is it? What is because God will show you what the felt need is. It was more in the area of alcohol abuse and addressing that. Remember, it's not the addiction to begin with. It's all the life issues surrounding the addiction and the acting out. For example, you may have Jill, who is drinking a lot, and she's out in the street, and of course she's been sex trafficked, and all these horrible things have happened. Why is that? Well, let's see. Mom and Dad got divorced. There's no food in the house. There's no hope in the house. Family of origin issues are legion, and there are other things that contribute to hopelessness within Jill's life. And then she's saying, well, forget it. We call it case of the efforts. Forget it, forget it, forget it. As opposed to forgive it, forgive it, forgive it. That's a big journey. And God has called us as the church to be the ones to take her hand and point her to Jesus. That's discipleship. Point her to Jesus so that we can show her through that process of acceptance, accountability, action, and therefore giving hope where there was none. So what's the felt need? Maybe it's cocaine addiction. Maybe it's, again, a problem of broken relationships that you really want to hone in on for a season. Always be aware. Always have the radar up and be aware. Ask the questions. How? What will fill the need? Where are your core church members at with this? Where to? Goes back to my original question. Who are you? Not only individually, but who are you as a group? Because if you are not of the same mind, you'll have big problems in going out there to get them and bring them in to the side door and then through the main door. If you have too many who are, shall we say, late adopters, or who think differently about church, or still in that sick mentality of, well, anybody who's got issues that we don't do not belong here. That's judgmental, that's exclusivity, and that also fights inclusivity. It has to be the opposite. The opposite is where you are inclusive, radically. You're inclusive the best you can. Again, we don't have perfect situations always, but we strive to become what Jesus has called us to be and be willing to adapt to those felt needs in the community. As I said earlier too, the church has to work together. If you don't, then you have division. If you have unity in the church, all the church groups can work together. Yes, well, we have this over here. Great, we'll send Jill over to you. It's not about numbers to begin with at your church. Yeah, we got the bigger numbers here as far as attendance. That's not our goal. Our goal is to address the needs of the souls. Souls are involved here. Hearts are involved here. And we have to be aware of how this is addressed. Methodology. And one size does not fit all. One method does not fit all. We have to be considerate and also willing to try different things, different methodologies. And again, what is your core? Core values, core vision, core mission, daily. It all rises and falls in leadership, everybody. And so next, we then look at recovery. Here at Community Recovery, we look at recovery as evangelism. It all begins with the gospel. doesn't it? So with all the things I just talked about, side door, main door, goes back to how is it that person can know Jesus? The method is the entry point. Oh, you have an addiction issue. Hey, how can we help? Help me understand. Ask the question. And so evangelism, of course, is good news. We tell the good news. Grace amidst chaos. Oh, we've got chaos. Recovery is sanctification, as I mentioned before in the previous sessions, expressed in the biblical context. Redemptive, restorative, renewal. The next 3 R's describe what I was just explaining, what we ought to be doing as the church. So, redemptive, becoming God's person. Believer who struggles with, whatever they struggle with, accept that. We all struggle with something, don't we? All falling short. All right. Restorative, restore relationships with God and others. That is, again, the driving force. Restore, not divide. Renewal of people and creation. Actually looking at 4 R's here after the recovery and sanctification point, but that renewal of people and creation. We are to restore not only people, but also the world around us. Safer streets, safer communities, wellness. That's also involved too. And everybody is a part, as I said, as we all work together. Then, reunion, reconnection. Perhaps Jack or Josephine, who has been sex trafficked, is looking to come back into the body of believers. They are looking for the salvation of Jesus. We all are. And when they and also reconnection with God's people, because God made us relational. And Hebrews 10 says, do not neglect the gathering together of God's people. Ooh, that's where it is, folks. We reconnect. Because quite often, those who are on the streets have been shunned and pushed out before by the church. Unfortunately, your job is to reconnect them to the church in a meaningful way. And maybe it's that special group you got on Thursday nights. Maybe it's that special service you have on Sunday nights. Maybe it's that other part of the church, a group that they connect to. That's okay. And eventually join the bigger group. However that means. Because just like we have a number of cells in our bodies, each cell has a different purpose and a different collection of cells. In each cell, you have the nucleus and other parts of that cell. In the same way, we have different groups that have different leaders and also purposes to make up the whole body. As we said before with 1 Corinthians 12, the hand needs the heart, and the heart needs the head, and the head needs the eyes need the feet. And they all make up the body. So let's be the body with all the R's. Recovery, redemptive, restorative, renewal, and reunion. So now recovery as evangelism, next, goes into recovery as outreach. Outreach. Matthew 28, we know that well as church leaders. The Great Commission, baptize all in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But that's what we call the Great Commission. And then Jesus says in Acts 1:8, he says, I've called you to go as far, to all the ends of the earth, not just in your own communities. Hence the persecution of the church that drove people who knew Christ to become the missionaries, to bring the good news, the gospel, to India with Thomas, and also with Paul and the other parts of the world as they knew it. Us too, all over the country you live in, and working together with us here in America, a great collaborative. Baptizing a disciple. We need to say this is the person who once was dead is now alive, lost and now found. And discipleship is, sort of the how, sort of outreach is pointing people to Jesus. That's what it is. And what gets in the way are our attitudes, our preconceived notions. So get them out of the way, because again, it goes back to need, desire, accountability. We evangelize, we establish, and we equip. Let me explain to you in terms of how we see that working. Evangelism, of course, is bringing the good news. Establishing helps people to, well, go through the steps of becoming a strong believer and follower of Jesus. And then equipping, giving them the tools to do what you did with them at the beginning. I'm going to get the whiteboard and I'm going to illustrate, as we close out this session, I'm going to illustrate how it all fits together. As you look at relapse prevention, as you look at all these different things, working together like a puzzle, all the pieces coming together to form the great picture of God's people making, called by God, where God makes it happen through you. So as Pastor Greg brings the whiteboard, start thinking about who are we? Maybe you want to stop the tape, or the film rather, the video, and say, let's talk about this for a minute. What does this mean? How are we to do this? Now, I received my training in the city of Chicago. Large city here in America. Maybe you've been there. Chicago has, of course, the elevated train system, as well as subway system, much like New York City and, of course, other large metropolitan areas. And Chicago has the train go from the underground subway to the above ground, the elevated train. And I hope this picture will help you to capture what this feels like, what this looks like, how you could fashion a vision statement and also a set of core values and mission statement and strategy statement plan that'll help you to go forward for the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5-year plan. Here it is. Back in the day, in the 1990s and before, now everything's more digitized, it's automatic, but back at that time, I was a social worker in the city of Chicago. I had 12 people in my caseload. I took the train in from the suburbs because my wife worked in the suburbs, so we made the choice of living there, and I came into the city to work every morning. And as I came to the elevated train system that started in the suburb of Evanston on the north side, which is bordering the city, you would then come through the entrance to the elevated train station. Now, the elevated train station at that time had a person who was in the booth. Now, these stick figures are a lot of fun. We have fun with stick figures here. And you can see how in the booth, they